to the enemy, we're guilty of treason. Our Congress, Richard Nixon promised us in 1968 when he was running for the presidency at the American Legion Convention before the election of November of that year. He said, quote, there should be no aid or credit of any kind with any country that aids the enemy in Vietnam. He's talking about Russia. So the president said, I promise, as a candidate, I promised I'm going to stop it. There should be no, none, zero, none aid and trade. And yet, under the Export Control Act, he has the power to stop it. He doesn't need Congress. He doesn't need to go to the American people. He does it by himself. He doesn't need anyone. He says, we're no longer sending stuff to Russia. Well, he didn't do that. President Nixon didn't deliver on the promise made by Richard Nixon, the candidate. Why? Why, America? Why would we do this? Please, I'm still waiting for an answer. I can't find anybody except Mo Udall that said it was creating jobs. And of course it did. It creates a lot of jobs. Dead people always create jobs because you have to find car drivers for the funeral, and they have to find diggers to, I hate to be gross, but this is what happened during the Vietnamese War. It's a matter of proof, not theory, proof. Our government aided the enemy, Russia, by selling them technology during the entirety of the Vietnamese War. And that technology was in Vietnam to kill Americans. Why, America? Why? Please, I'm begging. Someone tell me why.
You know, why did they, let me answer that with another question, Ralph. Why did they spray us with Agent Orange when we were in the jungles of Vietnam? They didn't want well-trained, combat-hardened, healthy veterans coming back to this country and seeing what a disaster communism was here.
That's correct. Well, I know when I was a small boy, I went to New York City with my mother and brother to visit my grandmother, and this was at the end of World War II, and my uncle was a manager or something of a skyscraper in New York City. We went up to the top and looked down on the parade route as these Americans came back from World War II in their brown uniforms. They marched, and it was a very beautiful, inspiring sight, and there were ticker tape parades welcoming back our conquerors, our American fighting men. But when Vietnam was over, they didn't do that. Why? They were baby killers, hated them, spit on them, couldn't get jobs, and they were all drug addicts. Now, I wouldn't say all, but many of them were drug addicts. Now, why? Because that was the reason we fought the war in Vietnam, and that's also provable. Our government is the biggest drug dealer in the world. I can prove that. I'll say it again. I can prove that. It's a matter of documentation. It's all adequately documented in my DVD. Our government is the biggest drug dealer in the world. We import the heroin. That's the major drug in this country. The CIA brings it in Air America airplanes. I proved that. In fact, I got pictures of the Air America airplanes. I took them myself while there were two of them here in Tucson. You can see them. The Air America is not a fiction. It's not American Airlines. It's called Air America. It's owned by the CIA. And there were two of them down in Tucson being apparently reconditioned, maybe taking the seats out so they could use them for drug deals. I don't know. But there they were, parked on a tarmac down by the airport in Tucson, and I went with my trusty little camera and took pictures of them there. You can see them. So it's real. But that's okay, because we Americans, we're tolerant. We love our country, and they wouldn't do such a thing as that. And that's what I'm told. I don't believe you're telling the truth, Ralph, because no government, especially the American government, would do such a thing. Sorry, they did. I'll say one more thing, Clay. I walked the Vietnam Wall in Washington, D.C. when I was touring the country with my first book in the 80s. And so help me God, I didn't know one name on that wall. But I walked one end of it to the other, and I cried like a baby, because I knew it wasn't the Viet Cong that killed those men and women. It wasn't the North Vietnamese. It wasn't even the Russians. It was the American government that killed it. That's called first-degree premeditated murder. And that's why I would urge you to go watch that DVD called Vietnam, America's Betrayal and Treason on my website. Go there, sit down for first. It's not going to be fun. But anyway, the reason I brought it up is because we were told by Patrick Henry we've got to deal with painful truths so we don't allow it to happen again. Well, if we had listened to me in the 70s when I was saying these things and proving it, there wouldn't have been a 9/11 attack. The government, we would have known that they were going to do things like this.
Now, Ralph, my information from somebody that was inside there, that those buildings were not viable. They could not be repaired. They could not build scaffolding that high. They were filled with asbestos. The engineering report from the engineering firm that had worked for the Port Authority had told them that they had to be brought down. They couldn't be repaired. So Larry Silverstein stepped up to the plate, leased them for 99 years for $500 million, insured them for $2 billion, and they were dropped down. They weren't dropped down from the planes. Where did these explosions come from? The week before this, they had locked it up and for a security check or something like that. And building number 7 went down. No plane hit that. And this was all used to bring us into a war. Who benefited from this, Ralph? And this will take us into the information in your latest tape. You want to tell people what the name of that is, and let's talk about that?
I put a DVD out called The Bogus Jewish Conspiracy, because I've been hearing about this since at least the 60s. One of the first things I learned about was that this conspiracy was real, and that there were some people back in the 60s even that said it was being led by the Jews. And I've been dealing with that ever since, and I'm tired of it. It's a bogus claim. The Jews are not behind this. This conspiracy is 6,000 years old, and it predates the Jews, it predates the CFR, predates the Bilderbergers, it predates the Masons.